Hello everybody, my name is Stevenson and I'll be teaching all of you today about internal control, which is chapter 7 in the auditing book. So first of all, COSO is the one that manages internal control, and they define it as the process affected by an entity's board of directors, management, and other personnel, designed to provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of objectives relating to operations, reporting, and compliance. So it was mainly created because of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which was set up in the 1970s because American businesses were trying to accrue and buy foreign businesses using tactics that were legal in that foreign country but not in America. And those include kickbacks and briberies. So there are 5 types of controls. First one is detective. And so for detective and preventive, I'm going to use pretty much the same example, but change a little bit, so I'll give you a reference. So with detective, you can think of detective controls as a camera, and a camera gives feed. And so it, especially for security purposes, if somebody breaks into your company and steals something, you'll be able to have a rough estimate of maybe how tall he is, what the person was wearing, what the person took. And then preventive could be those same security cameras, but say the person attempts to break in, sees those cameras, they may become deterred and leave instead of risk the potentiality of being caught. So then the third type of control is complementary. And complementary are controls that function together to complete one objective. Of that, an example would be bank statements. The next would be compensating, which is reducing the risk if others' controls fail. And so this being, think of it in terms of segregation of duties. Say there's a small company and they don't have a lot of employees, and so the manager, even though this is a risk in and of itself, it could be better for maybe like a cost benefits sort of analysis, having the manager authorize as well as maybe do some other duty that another employee would normally do. And then you have key controls, of which key controls are choosing the best controls for your company. So each company, even though it may be the same environment, it's all different. And so choosing the right control for you is imperative. So the first of COSO is control environment, and that has to do with the tone at the top, as we've talked about many times. And so tone at the top is where management oversees a lot. And so if you don't have good management, you can't be expected to have good employees, middle management, and so forth. And so management must have good integrity, must have good ethical values, and a well-roundedness or competence. And this is not just competence for management, but also employees. When a manager wants to employ new people, they need to make sure that that person is competent enough to do the job they are interviewing for. Next up is risk assessment. And risk assessment is management's process for identifying, analyzing, and responding to such risks. So an important question to ask is the likelihood and impact of that risk. So how often will it happen, and what will it affect? How will it affect us if it does, or when it does? And so with that knowledge, you'll be able to understand what you want to do when met with that risk. First thing you can do is avoid it. This could be there's a problem in your area, so a branch in a company that you may own may say that, all right, this is not worth it, let's just move to the next county. And then reduce is where, say, okay, there's problems in our community. What we can do is try to make it better. Maybe have more advertisement, new PR, maybe sell more products. And then share would be say okay, our other branch is doing really good. Let's see what they're doing and see how they can help us, or accept it, which is we're not going to do anything about it. We'll just leave it as is. The third is control activities, and they are policies and procedures that help mitigate the risk that the organization's objectives are not met. And so for this, they need to figure out maybe display and figure out acceptable levels of mitigation, and then also create control activities over technologies, since technology is so vital today, and as well as deploy policies in order to fix those above cases. And so the common control activities, there are 3 of them. It's performance reviews, transaction control activities, and information processing controls. And the most important of those 3 are performance reviews, of which it includes reconciliations, verifications, and budget to actual comparisons. Next up is information and communication. So 3 questions I have on the slide is who and where does it go? It could go to anyone who needs to know that information. It could be up, down, or down, up. It does not matter. And what does it entail? It could be anything of importance, anything that could change some sort of accounting procedure, change internal control, change the way we recognize revenue, anything like that. And then why communicate the information? Because it could be imperative to the strength of your company. And so if you don't communicate those changes, one employee may know it, one may not. And so if that one employee does know it and the other person doesn't, and that could be a huge problem for when that employee comes across that unknown knowledge. So lastly is monitoring, and it's a process that assesses the quality and effectiveness of internal control system over time. And so what I like to say is that it's a constant review over many areas using many mediums. So in monitoring, internal control is never done. It's a constant process. It always needs to be taken into effect. And so this is also internal and external. It could be both outside parties or within your own company. And so, of course, with every good thing, there's always a couple of bad things. And there's 3 limitations of internal control. One being human error. A person is always not necessarily prone, but susceptible to error. And so then the next one is circumvention, which goes along with the human error, and that has to do with collusion. 2 employees that may have 2 different responsibilities that should not mingle do, and so they can alter financials to benefit them and to negatively affect the company. And then there's management override. And that's when management says, all right, you don't need to have this authorization. You don't need to have this signature. Just push it through. We don't have time to waste. And so that's a limitation of internal control. And so there's another mode to COSO, which is ERM, which is Enterprise Risk Management. It's the same thing as the COSO guideline, and it's similar in definitions in these 3 bullet points. But for the first one is internal environment, and the internal environment provides structures and discipline that sets the tone and basis for new risk as it's viewed and addressed. Next is objective setting, which is establishing high-level goals with the organization's mission. Third, event identification, which is the discovery of positive or negative events and dealing with them accordingly. Next is risk assessment, very much like COSO. You analyze the likelihood, considered, and impact to be determined, and how you manage that risk. So next is the risk response, which is either avoidance, reduction, sharing, or acceptance, which is the same thing that you do when you want to avoid or what to do when risk comes your way. And the last one is control activities, which is establishment of policies and procedures to ensure risk response is effectively carried out, which is exactly the same as control activities in COSO. So that is Chapter 7 summated, and hopefully learned something new or fortified what you had already learned. So thanks for listening. Bye.